everybody. It's Sickle Cell Awareness 365. And do I look sick? This is Mia.
And Jennifer back in full effect.
And I am so happy that you are back, Jennifer. I know it has been rough for quite some time, but this last month has been really a doozy. And we would like to hear more of that experience. And I'm sure we can learn a lot from the things that you went through. Just briefly, less than a month ago, about your experience with sickle cell and what's been going on with you. I know our people have been missing you because I've been holding it down, but I know you've been there in spirit. But I'm glad to see that you're back with us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. There's no other place that I would rather be, especially since that last month and change was spent in the hospital. That's the last place I would have wanted to be.
I'm sure. Trust me. I know I know the feeling. So just to give people some clarity, we've spoke before about the different types of sickle cell. I've shared before that I have type SC and how it affects me. But let's hear how, generally speaking, SS affects you.
So, okay, we all know that I have SS. And I never really thought, too much about the SC versus SS, beta thal, any of that, because to me it was always, sickle cell, sickle cell. None is more severe. I hate when people say that. But with my experience, it has been crazy. Not to say others haven't had crazy experiences. And it really started about 5 or 6 years ago, I guess, when we figured out that I had pulmonary hypertension as a result of the sickle cell. That was like the beginning of some new trying experiences for me. And then after that, finding out I had chronic kidney disorder, all as a result of sickle cell. So those, have been like the biggest things recently. But of course, I've had like my hip replaced and my shoulder replaced from AVN. But it seems like more recently, it's been like bigger side effects from having SS.
So how did you find out that you had pulmonary hypertension? Like, what were your symptoms and what was going on to make you like, hey, say something isn't right with this? Like, what?
Well, there was actually, if you remember, you and I had gone to Costa Rica, and I was walking around with you, and I was like, man, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And I was using my inhaler because I was like, this asthma is really bad. Is it the elevation? And I just was feeling like really winded, like extraordinarily so. And my inhaler wasn't working. So, we're out in Costa Rica. We're living our best lives. We're ziplining, meeting new people, going to parties. And all the while, I'm like, I need to catch my breath. Like, and it just didn't seem normal.
Yeah.
And when we came home, of course, we had partied so hard, I needed a break from the vacation. But I
Yes.
ended up going into a crisis. And I honestly don't remember what happened from the moment that they said they were going to admit me and take me to the room until the moment I woke up in the ICU.
Mm,
And my mom tells me that like my oxygen just kept dropping. Nothing they were doing was keeping my oxygen sats um, in the normal range. And we ended up in ICU. They were doing so many tests trying to figure out what was going on, what was happening. And then they determined it was pulmonary hypertension.
Sheesh. And that was also something new to me. I don't deal with asthma or breathing problems. I don't even deal with acute chest syndrome. So that was also new for me, just hearing of that experience and hearing another part of the body that sickle cell can affect. Like, we know that sickle cell can affect anything from the head to the toe wherever blood flows, but we don't I don't think about sometimes the depth of the severity that it can.
Right. And it's some things you don't even think of, like I know blood flows in my lungs, but I never even thought of that. Like it never even occurred to me.
Yeah, yeah. And then you said you found out you had chronic kidney failure.
Yes. Disease. So, I have to watch my salt intake. I have to take diuretics, and I'm not on dialysis. Thank God that I don't have to have that experience. But I have to, watch my diet and things like that. And the crazy thing is, with sickle cell, it's like hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. With the kidney disease and with the pulmonary hypertension, it's like, but don't hydrate too much because that's not good for you either. And I'm always kind of going through this battle like, am I really thirsty? Do I think I'm thirsty? Should I drink? How much can I drink? It's like this tightrope that I'm walking all the time.
That's so crazy. And I know you've mentioned to me several times about the maximum amount of liquid that you can drink, and I know that's pretty difficult given, like you said, that we are taught to continuously hydrate. So that's a thin line. So now your sickle cell affects your lungs, your kidneys, and your heart. What effects did you feel that sickle cell was affecting your heart? Like, how did you find that out?
So for the past now, I guess year, I've been like having this unexplained swelling. Like my belly will swell, my legs will swell, my ankles will swell, be to the point where I can't put a shoe on, I can't put a slide on, and I have to wear like really loose pants or pants two sides bigger. Otherwise, I can't get them off because my legs are so swollen. So I kept, going in, and they're like, "Oh, it's your kidneys. You need to up the diuretics, up the diuretics." So that's what we would do. We'd get myself back to like my normal weight because I wasn't swelling in those places. But each time I still had the swelling in my belly. And it wasn't until this hospitalization that they were like, okay, something else is going on besides the pulmonary hypertension and the kidneys. It's like we need to do all these tests every day. It was a different test, a different echo, a different MRI, a different CAT scan. Oh, we're going to do a paracentesis. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's like, okay, this is too much. This is overwhelming. But after all those tests, it was determined that my tricuspid valve is leaking in my heart. So that was what is causing a lot of the swelling, because swelling is also a signifier of heart failure.
Mm. And explain what the tricuspid valve is exactly for those of us who may not know.
So I'm not really sure the purpose of it. I know we have the aorta, the bicuspid, and the tricuspid. And this one here, they kind of showed me a picture of it, how it's like too wide and like pouring out blood, regurgitating blood,
Mm-hmm.
and causing other things in my body to be congested and swollen, like my liver and things like that.
Wow. So it sounds like your body just shuts down when you go into crisis because it's
Completely, like from the liver, the kidneys, the heart. It's more than just pain for me, which
yeah.
is why I'm always on like my team. Like, we need to be proactive because retroactively, my whole everything could just shut down, and we're trying to figure out what happened. It's too late now.
Right. Right. And this is a really good reason as to why your team pretty much has to be A1 and on the same page. I know you talk a lot about your pulmonologist, and he's the goat of pulmonary hypertension. I'm calling him the goat. But what about, have you found a kidney doctor, a nephrologist, or a cardiologist to work on your heart? And how's
So,
the conversation with everybody going?
so the nephrologist and my pulmonologist work hand in hand because he's actually very difficult to get an appointment with. So a lot of times I'll see my pulmonologist and he'll have the notes that my nephrologist wanted to give me. They work so closely together that it's like seamless. You know, they call each other in the night and talk about my case. They come in, you know, in tandem or they come in separately and they're like, okay, this is what's going on. And they're always on the same page. They're always, and if one is like, okay, well, I think we should do this, and the other one's like this, they'll talk it over with me, they'll talk it over with each other, and we'll all come up with a plan.
That's really good.
Now, as far as the cardiologist, I have seen valve specialists. I haven't seen a cardiologist. I mean, they are cardiologists, but they specialize in the valve part of cardiology. So I guess cardiology is split into about five parts.
Wow.
To like cardiothoracic, like the valve part. It's a couple different parts that they're split into. So I've seen a valve specialist, and they have recommended a CT of my tricuspid valve so that we can make plans for what needs to happen. And the good thing about them, because I'm just now learning them and they are just now learning me, is that it's a team of doctors and they sit down as a team and discuss, you know, every Thursday what should happen with each of their patients.
Nice. And how did you find them? Was this through your pulmonologist?
Absolutely.
I told you to go.
They
Oh.
actually made the appointment. My pulmonologist actually made the appointment with them and called me and like, okay, we've made you an appointment. See this doctor.
That's awesome. That, again, that just shows the importance of having a good team. Even if you just start with one good doctor, how beneficial that can be, because it's doing us harm when we don't have a trustworthy or dependable team of doctors, or even just one doctor. It does us more harm than it does us good. So that's awesome. And I'm really glad that you're able to find that team of doctors that you can really trust and that are on one accord, one page with your health, and really, it sounds like they're really determined to find out what's going on and find a solution for it. So that's awesome.
And I think, you know, that is one of the stipulations that we as patients should have when we're looking for doctors. Like, we want to find a doctor who is completely curious about whatever it is, whether it's like nephrology or pulmonology or hematology, that like they're completely curious about their area of study. Because I think those doctors work the hardest to make sure that you're good, you're 100% good, and, you know, are more apt to hear you out when you're like, no, something still isn't right. Like, okay, well, I'm curious then. What is it?
Hmm. It's kind of like detective work
Yeah.
anyway. So that's crazy. So let's back up a little to, like, what triggered this last hospital stay? What, because I know you were pushing in like, I'm not going, and then there was one moment that was like, they gonna keep me this time. You had the backpack and everything, and you just knew they were gonna keep you. But what was it that was like the deciding factor in them, like, hey, we need to go ahead, and she's here. Let's hold her hostage. Let's keep her here till we figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it was my weight. Um, which means that I'm swelling. So when my weight goes up, you know, 2 to 3 pounds every day, I know we're gonna run into a problem. And I went to the doctor's office and I weighed like almost 140. And I'm like at 125. So they're like, absolutely not. You're not going home.
Yeah.
Your heart, everything is working overtime and you're a sponge basically.
Wow. And so when they kept you, um what was the first step in them trying to figure out what's going on? Like, how did
The
that?
first step was get the weight off, get the fluid off.
Okay.
That's always the first thing. So it's always like, okay, let me increase these diuretics, give her IV diuretics, and get this fluid off of her as fast as possible. So that was the first thing. And it was just, it actually ended up being test after test after test because they, got the fluid off me, got me down to close to my weight, but I was still a little elevated. But my stomach was still swollen and it was still painful. And I'm like, this still hurts like the first day I got here.
Mm.
So, they send you to gastroenterology. There's no problem there. They send you to digestive health. There's no problem there. And then I think ultimately they were like, okay, I think it's fluid.
Okay.
Um, and you've been holding this fluid maybe for months. So in them trying to test for, you know, trying to see what was in my stomach, they also did some blood cultures. Blood cultures came back positive for some rando bug.
Mm.
So everything as far as like trying to figure out what was going on with my stomach and the swelling, that kind of stopped because he had to figure out what this random bug was that was making me have fevers in the night and, growing in my blood cultures.
Gee. So what was going on with this bug? How did you get this bug, or like what's up with this bug?
So the bug, oh snap. Um the bug is basically an introduction from my port. Never did they say, hey, when you get your port, you should only have it for about 5 years.
Mm.
I had my port for 10 years.
Wow.
And they were like, this bug is closely related to tuberculosis. Um, we have to put you in ICU. We have to give you antibiotics, like everything stat, because this is a bad bug, whatever it is, because it's growing rapidly. It's duplicating itself at a crazy rate.
Wow. And I remember you saying something about for the blood culture to grow so fast in the petri dish, it had to be manifesting in your body for quite some time, right?
For
Really?
years, this bug had been in my body and thriving and living, and I had no idea.
And all from because you kept the port in too long.
Yeah,
I don't remember them telling me to keep it in for a certain amount of time. I just chose to have it removed because it was not functioning in the way that I got it for. It was
yeah.
purposeless for me. And I just chose to have it taken out, but I don't remember them telling me or giving me a time limit on how long to keep the port. And I'm not sure how many other people have been told that time limit to get the port because it's quite a few of us that do have ports.
Yes. And I was like, okay, that's something I definitely need to spread around because if they didn't tell me, I know there's at least 10 more people who didn't get told either.
Yeah, and that's scary. That's really scary. So what did they do with the port?
They took it out.
Okay.
They took the port out immediately, actually. They were like, this is coming out tomorrow.
Okay. And did they give you a new one?
They did give me a new one because they sent me home on antibiotics that I have to do through my port every day. So they gave me a new one, but now I know, year 4, we need to start talking about getting this thing out.
I really hate that. And that was something that I thought about with the joint replacements because these things do wear after so long. And I do remember with the hip replacement, they said after so long, you'll probably need another one. but I kind of tuck that in the back of my mind, like, okay, well, whatever. I'm gonna wear these out till the wheels fall off. But
Right.
it's so. I mean, it is what it is. But I just hate to have where I feel like we're becoming bionic and somewhat less human,
Yeah.
um, and just more man-made, if that makes sense. But it's crazy. So what once they took the port out, how did your heart and the swelling and stuff start adapting?
So the swelling in my heart is still, I mean, the leaking in my heart is still going on. And, I've been released from the hospital. I'm home. And I had about 3 days where I wasn't swollen, and now I'm back to being swollen, which means, as long as this valve is leaking, that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
So we have to start looking at options to fix that problem, which include open heart surgery or a clip or a clinical study that they have going on right now that I would have to qualify for in order to, benefit from that.
Okay. And what are the chances of each of them being beneficial to you, actually working in solving the issue with the
So the clip, which is that one is 50% effective. And then there's open heart surgery, which should effectively correct the problem. But it's, completely invasive. Then the third one, the clinical trial, they actually go through your groin and replace the valve with like cow parts.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that has been getting traction and doing well.
Really? That's interesting. I would love to know. And they well, you said it's a clinical trial, so do you know like how many people have used this or
No, I don't have any of the stats, only that they said that it has been proven effective so far.
okay.
But I mean, if that's something that we end up talking about for myself, I want to see the stats.
Yeah. I don't blame you. We already kind of somewhat fear clinical trials, but um it's it's needed in some cases. And aside from wanting to set an example for other sickle cell patients, we just want to see what works best for us
Right.
so it without having to endure such an invasive surgery. So I get it. That's a difficult decision, but I get it. So how was your overall experience with this last hospital stay?
It wasn't terrible, I'll say. I'm usually on the same floor with the same nurses. However, since COVID, a lot of those nurses are gone. So there was a lot of new people. Um, but a lot of the charge nurses were older nurses from that floor. So when I had trouble with like a new nurse or whatever, I would talk to the charge nurse. That's because I know that, if you're my nurse during the day and you don't have a sense of urgency about yourself, or you mess up and can't seem to own up to your mistake or listen to what I'm saying, I don't want you to be my nurse again.
Right.
And I'm going to call the charge nurse and I'm going to ask them in the nighttime, when you're making that schedule for the daytime, please make sure this person is not my nurse. And I'm going to tell them why, instead of getting on Facebook and um, Twitter, or Instagram, or whatever, and just complaining about it. I want to document my complaints.
Right. And I know sometimes we can be afraid. We let fear interfere with saying something because we don't want the nurse to act out of spite towards our care. It's so draining to have to fight the disease within itself, fight for your life in a sense, and then go to the hospital where you are receiving help and supposed to be receiving appropriate care, and you still have to fight. It's
Yeah.
so incredibly draining. But like you said, there's always a proper way to document and let someone know what's going on, because you want to take care of your health then and there. Putting it on Facebook and Twitter, kind of, that's the backhand of things. But what about getting that better care right then and right there? So,
Right.
um,
I mean, I had one nurse who, I made a complaint against her to the charge nurse, and then she came back in my room and was like, "You called your mom on me?" First of all, that's really unprofessional. I'm allowed to call someone to advocate for myself. And
right,
if you've not done what you need to do and you've not listened to me, then my next step is to call someone else who's going to make you listen.
exactly, exactly. I kind of feel like if y'all don't want the job, y'all didn't have to come that day. Don't take it out on us because you're miserable. We might be miserable enough going through what we're going through, so we don't need anything extra to kind of take us out of character or mess that vibe up. So I get it.
Right. I
I could.
mean, and everyone's in the hospital because they're sick, not because they want to be.
Right.
So don't tell me that you have patients who are really sick,
Yes.
because, that's offensive. That means that you don't believe that what I'm going through is important at all.
Right. We all wouldn't be here if we weren't sick. And that was the issue with my last hospitalization. But it's it's I kind of feel, well, no, I kind of feel, but we have to also advocate. Um, we're always on. We have to teach them also about sickle cell in that moment and how it's affecting us personally. So maybe the next person that comes in there with sickle cell disease and pulmonary hypertension, they'll know how to treat them and they'll know what's going on. So
Right.
we never. I feel like we never truly get a break.
Yeah, I agree with you, because like you said, you're always on. At home, you're on because, you know, you have things to do. You can't be like, "Oh man, I don't feel good." I mean, you can be like that, but you still have to take care of whatever responsibilities can't be pushed to the next day.
Right.
Then you go to the hospital and it's like, okay, one, if I'm not, gyrating and making all this noise, you don't think that I'm really in pain.
Right.
Two, if I am gyrating and making all this noise, you think that I'm faking.
Right.
What am I supposed to do?
Right.
Because I just want to do me, which is breathe deep, zone out, like I'm not here. This pain isn't in my body. That's what I want to do. That doesn't require me to yell and scream and throw stuff at you. I'm cool on that. That makes it worse.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I feel like that makes it worse because you're exerting all that energy and you really don't have the energy to begin with. So you're exerting more energy to physically fight them and just have to be on defense mode all the time. So
Like, when do you get to relax? When do we breathe?
we we have to take our breath. We can't breathe there either because it's without us. So with the staff, were you able to get a good or create a good management plan as far as your pain medications, your procedures, or your medications you need for what was going on with your heart and kidneys? Like, how were you able to develop that plan while you were there in the hospital?
So I have certain protocols already. So when I come in, they look at what they did prior to, and depending on how the crisis is, I'll just be like, okay, let's start on that, which is maybe like 2 milligrams of Dilaudid every 3 hours. Maybe a long acting, maybe not, Benadryl for the itching. And we'll start with that. And I'll go, through the night and see if that works. And then when the team comes in the next morning, if it hasn't worked, I'm like, can we, bump it up just a little bit for a few days and then take it back down? And usually just, because they know me, they know that I know my body, and they're respectful of that, we can make those changes.
And that's good. You have to really know your body, be aware of what you can and can't tolerate, what you can and can't take, when is enough, when do you need to start weaning yourself off of the meds. That's like such a critical piece of your advocacy and being able to advocate for yourself with the staff. So
Right.
it's super important.
And I like to make sure that, like, even on the last day that I'm there, um, I still get a chance to make my decisions on whether I want you to give me pill form medication or IV medication. And that's something that I have established with my doctors. They never like take the IV medicine away, so that I can be in charge of weaning myself down as necessary.
That makes sense. Now, was your experience different in ICU than it was in the regular hospital? How long were you in ICU?
So I was in ICU 2 different times for maybe a total of 5 days.
Okay.
Um, Being in ICU, one, the beds are better. Two, the nurses there only have 2 patients instead of 5. So they're a little bit more attentive because they have time to be. But there was also still some instances where I had issues because, the pharmacy may have changed how my medicine was supposed to be taken, and they were trying to force me to take it in a way that I knew would make me sick.
Yeah.
And I had to speak up for myself there and also get the nurse a little bit offended because I called my doctor and had him tell her that she was wrong.
Right.
But, for the most part, you get attentive care in ICU.
And that's good. I wish we could just get that period um, without having to be in ICU. I think we would get
Yeah.
a lot better care as well as decrease time in the hospital if we had more attentive nurses and doctors, as well as receptive doctors and nurses when they actually listen to the patient and understand, that the patient knows their body. Um,
Right.
so that's super beneficial. Did you have to complain at all to the charge nurse in ICU?
I did the day that they were trying to give me the medication improperly.
Got you. Okay.
Because I am no stranger to complaining to a charge nurse.
Good. We got to make friends with the charge nurse because, and I really hate to say that. I would love to say that every stay is perfect and there's no issues, but that's not always the case. Even if you, like this last time, my tech didn't come in until lunchtime. Normally, with the change of shift, like at 7, between 7 and 8, that's when they're changing shift. That's when they introduce themselves to you, write their name,
Mhm.
number on the board. But I didn't see that. So I found that um, insufficient for me. My blood pressure had been going up. So it was something that, like, that wasn't normal for me.
Right.
So I had to complain to the charge nurse, and it wasn't me being nitpicky. It was just that the tech was not doing her job. I don't know who my tech is. I don't know her name. I don't know anything about her. I don't even know what she looks like because she hasn't come in and introduced herself. So even though that may seem small to some people, your tech is there for a reason.
Right.
And you need them to do what they came to work to do. So
And I think we have to get away from, the fact of, oh, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I don't want to nitpick, because I know I'm like, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Because I'm always like, what are they going to do to me now? How are they going to treat me now that I've said something? But I know that I have to get away from that. And I think maybe we all need to get away from thinking that it's nitpicking when it's just us demanding civil care.
yeah, absolutely. We deserve that. simply we just deserve proper care, the right care, um the same care, that equal care, same care that everybody else is getting. Just because they may see that we're not as sick as some other patients, that's not the case. People,
Right.
we wouldn't all be here if we weren't sick, um
Right. This,
regardless of what we look like.
right. This is not Club Med. It's like not that.
Club, whatever. Yeah, it's not, and it's not a vacation. A lot of us have to plan our hospital stay like we are planning a vacation, because it's like we know our bodies enough to know when we need to be admitted. I can really sense when I need to be admitted, or if an 8 hour infusion, so to speak, will work. Um, but it's still a plan. Like, I take my activities, so I have something to do while I'm in the hospital, whether it's 8 hours or 8 days. Um,
Right.
have your change of clothes, your toiletries. They give you toiletries, but you still want
But
some.
you want your own stuff.
Yeah, we
And
got
I appreciate my friends more than anybody else in the whole wide world. Caitlin, LaShanta, you, Coda, Connect. I
to.
appreciate it because I was the envy of everybody with my goodie bag.
Good, good. We wanted it to feel like it was your birthday.
I
For
was like, I got gifts. I got some cherry coke, and I got muffins. Like,
That's good. And that's what we wanted, because, and your mom called me and she was just so thankful that we were able to do that for you. Of course, I was disappointed that I couldn't come up and hand deliver it to you. We had a whole plan and everything. Okay, I'm gonna go up there, and then that's when I'm gonna FaceTime, or y'all FaceTime, or whatever. And we just had the whole plan, and it got derailed because I couldn't come up there and give it to you yourself. But I wanted to make sure it had all your favorite stuff in there. You were saying they weren't giving you your snacks to take with your medicine. You have a
yeah.
strict calorie, and we was like, oh, we finna get her these muffins. She gonna have her snacks to take her medicine, since y'all want to be a little shady. um So we wanted to make sure that you just had all your goodies. You had some fun activities to do in the hospital, because it gets boring, and it gets lonely, even though your mom and people, it's still limited to the visitors that you can see. And sometimes we just want someone there. So I get, just being bored and being lonely in the hospital. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm glad you were able to keep us updated, because we were definitely worried about you. We all had our moments, but we was like, she gonna get it together. And when you got home and you showed us your living room, I was like, yes, you better. I could have, I could have ran through this house. We were so excited to see you home. It was all of us just for you, just rooting for you. So we was excited. We had your back.
I know it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but like I said, I just wanted to make sure, wanted to make it feel like it was your birthday. Forget your birthday in June, but it's your birthday today. So I'm glad that that really helped kind of boost your mood, and you be the envy that people see, that how loved you are, and
Yeah.
how you have such great support with you, and everybody is rooting for you. Afterwards, I was like, Jennifer is such a fucking trooper. I was like, she's a trooper.
Yeah, because I really, usually after like a week or 2 weeks, I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I'm like crawling the walls. But I guess because I knew I couldn't, I just had to like make my peace with it. Otherwise, I don't, I think mentally I would have been like completely broken down after, over a month away from my family and stuff like that.
And how does your son? It's Mother's Day coming up, and I'm glad you're able to be home with your son and with your mom for Mother's Day, because you've had so much time away. How did your son feel about you making it back home?
I think he was excited that I was home. But of course, he got in trouble like as soon as I got home. So that may have tainted a little bit. But he was like, I'm still glad you're here. So,
Yeah. Well, he should have known what to expect.
He should have. He known me all his life. He should know what
Right.
I expect.
And you had to jump right back into mommy mode. Like
Absolutely. It's no downtime.
none. Even trying to recover from the hospital. I get it. I get it.
None.
Vacations, people, I think our doctors need to write a prescription for vacations, to be honest.
Absolutely. It should be covered by insurance.
Maybe have a designated place we can go every year. I don't know, but we need to figure it out because
Something.
it's
Let's talk to Joe Biden.
was,
So let's talk to Joe Biden.
I know it something because we need a break to just do nothing. And not one of those vacations where you are just turned up 24/7.
No, it's part of the American Recovery Plan that he is. I got okay, Joe. I got something for you.
Yeah, somewhere we can just go and relax, do nothing, order room service, and just be. We are so busy doing. Um, we need to go somewhere to just have a moment to just be. So
A good place to go that we could just be would be the Apex Museum.
it would be. We definitely need to check with Mr. Moore to see if they have opened back up. We really, really appreciate Mr. Dan Moore and the Apex Museum for being one of our awesome sponsors. We also want to thank Kids Stop Daycare and Learning Center um, for Tanya Robinson for her support and all that she has done for us. And we want to thank the Black Professionals Network. So is there anything else that you wanted to share? Is there anything that we did not cover that you wanted to tell our audience about?
I think we covered a lot of everything that's been going on for the past month and a half. And I just want to leave people with the thought that, you are your biggest advocate and you are the most important person. So you need to act like it when you're in the hospital and do what you got to do so that you're taken care of. Number one is taken care of at all times, no matter what you think may happen by speaking up.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more. That's the difference in bad care and good care. So
Yeah.
it just depends on you. I know we get tired. Just keep fighting, y'all. Keep holding on. Get that support system together so we have to stay mentally strong as well. So I thank you so much, Jennifer. Have a wonderful, happy Mother's Day. I am
Thank
glad that you're
you.
with your mom and your son, and we can celebrate you and your you-ness on Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy Nurses Week to all the awesome nurses out there. Candace, St. John,
Nate,
Sheeta,
Gerald,
all y'all.
Lori. Well, Lori's not a nurse anymore. She's a doctor.
Awesome. Well, we're going to celebrate her too anyway. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Next time.